Welcome into the Common Dad Podcast Season 5. Thank you so much for joining. I am yet again your host, Justin Matthew Gray, the first.
Some things stay the same.
They do. The things you don't want stay the same, unfortunately. And speaking of, my host, Andrew, how are you doing this fine evening?
Yeah, it's good. No, it's good.
It's fine.
I had to think about it for a second and determine whether I really wanted to go down that road.
So I've stumbled into what feels like another stage of either fatherhood or adulthood, and it's the cooking of copious amounts of meats on the grill.
It's a good thing.
So this past weekend I just grabbed, I don't know, 20 pounds of baby back ribs and decided I was just gonna, way more food than we needed, but I was like, hey, they're on sale, whatever, let's do it. And I just dove into that, and I just have a tiny little like charcoal grill. I don't have anything.
You did 20 pounds of ribs on one little charbroil grill?
20 pounds is probably excessive, but how many pounds do you think two baby back, like full racks of ribs are?
I don't know, 8 pounds total.
Okay, probably not 20. But anyway,
you grabbed 2 racks.
It took me about 2 racks. Yeah, probably not 20 pounds.
I don't know. I've actually never done ribs. I've done a brisket. I've done pork butt. I've done what did we do this? We just did a rib roast this last weekend.
Okay.
So
maybe we need to do some of those videos. This seems to be real popular, where they slap the stick of butter down on the grill at 1,000,000 miles an hour,
exactly.
Talking
Slow
a Cajun
motion
accent for some reason. Yep. So yeah, I did two racks of ribs. I gave them a 7.2. They were fine.
How long?
I don't know.
Did you keep them on the grill?
I did.
Did you try to like smoke? Did you have like because you have a charcoal grill, right?
I have a charcoal grill. So what I did is it's a 22-inch Weber. It's like your very classic grill, right? Little circular, looks like a UFO. So I put my charcoal on one side of the grill. I did a dry rub, mustard, all that good stuff. Put them on there for an hour and a half, but like indirect heat. So I did the ribs on one side, hour and a half. Then I took them off, wrapped them in foil, put butter, honey, and brown sugar on them to kind of like get a nice little caramelization going on. Put them back on the grill, still indirect heat for, I want to say, another hour. About.
Did you do any wood chunks
somewhere around
anything?
there? I didn't do any. I wanted to do like real basic this time, so I could kind of tweak from this, see what I liked, what I didn't like, and then change. And then after that, I took it off and then started basting the sauce on there, probably for like another 10 minutes, just to kind of like caramelize it, get a little crunchy on there. It was okay. I think I prefer my rib meat to be almost falling off the bone, and I got it like right to the 190 recommended temperature. And it was a little tough.
Gotcha.
A little tough.
I know absolutely nothing, but the only thing I would recommend, knowing absolutely nothing, would be to take longer to do it. You need to slow it down.
That's
so
what I'm thinking.
Lower temperature for a longer duration.
Yep. That's what I think. Because I was like 300. I think if I drop it to like 250,
to like 225, 250.
Yep. And then do it for like another 2 hours and just a nice slow.
I don't have a Weber.
Like the flavor was good on the outside, but it wasn't in there.
Right. I've heard some people they create like a ring around the grill.
Yeah.
And they start it on one side.
Yeah.
And they close the lid.
Right.
They put everything on and they close the lid, and it slowly burns so that you get a better temperature that like maintains itself. It just slowly kind of like trickles in a circle around the charcoal as just slowly burning through it, rather than just throwing all the charcoal on half of it. It's an idea.
So I have seen that. I have seen that. The only problem that a lot of people don't like is you get when that charcoal lights, you're getting a lot of that like ignition fuel in there.
So
and
do you have the
flavor?
You're saying like the
is going to get it
the charcoal ignition stuff.
I don't have like the quick light stuff. It's the regular charcoal, but still, it's.
I think if you look for the chemical on hardwood charcoal,
whatever it is,
like our stores down here, they like not the briquettes, but like hardwood charcoal. I think might. I don't know. I know nothing.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Anything about any of this really? So
I've got a lot of ways to go. This was like a first, like okay, like I'm a father. I've been married for 11 years now. It's time to start cooking meats, and I just dove right into it. And it wasn't a disaster. It didn't come out burned. It was completely edible, and I was like, okay, it's a good base. It's where it was a good starting point. So we'll work up to a brisket. I don't know if I can do a brisket in that tiny little grill. I don't know. Maybe Traeger would like to sponsor the program.
Send us both.
Yeah, giant Traeger grills, and then we'll smoke meats
and
all day long.
We
won't even talk about
review that's completely biased.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just depends on how much you pay us for sure. So yeah, we're opening that entire can of worms. So stay tuned for more. It can get expensive, but
it's also delicious.
The ribs were cheap. They were like, which
aren't bad.
Was probably also another mistake. It was like $10 for a full rack of ribs. Where I got it, and I'm probably thinking it's probably not the best quality meat for $10 for an entire rack of ribs.
We've had good experience so far with Costco and with like Wild Fork Foods. I don't know if you have a Wild Fork up there.
What's the second one you said?
Wild Fork Foods.
I've never heard of that.
They're all over the place down here.
Maybe I'll try Costco next
but
time.
They do even like delivery.
I went Kroger.
Oh, you got to try Costco. Okay. Costco's got good meat.
We'll see. Costco's got the meats for sure. So we'll try that one next. We'll keep you up to date. If you've got any grilling tips, please, by all means, leave a comment, a DM, something. Throw a fellow father a lifeline, because I need a little help here. Anyway, we are continuing our before and after series. And this, I believe you said this, Andrew.
Oh boy.
Our most consequential, most drastic change before and after. And after really thinking about it, you're probably right. So this before and after is before and after marriage. Which, when we first started this, I thought before and after kids would be the biggest leap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so anymore. Do you think the marriage before and after marriage is the biggest change?
Well, I think you have to qualify what we're talking about, because like for us, for you and I specifically, marriage came in our early 20s. And I don't know that that's the most common experience. Are we talking pre and post wedding or pre and post marriage? And marriage. And I think for the average person, I don't understand
what the difference would be.
That's a fair point. I don't know. Semantics.
Don't know why you said that.
Well, a lot of things change on that wedding night.
Yeah, it's fair.
A lot of things change.
Continue.
I think you and I have a exceedingly rare experience because we got married in our early 20s, and I think that as time progresses, that's becoming less and less common.
Yeah.
So for us, pre and post marriage was essentially, high school, college, childhood of sorts, young adults sort of for a couple years, and then marriage and adulthood hand in hand. For a lot of people, they're getting married later in life, maybe in their 30s, maybe even in their 40s. They've experienced adulthood separately from marriage. And so I'd be curious what differences that perspective might bring. I think to your point, yes. I think for you and I, yes, it's a very drastic change, but I wonder how much of that is marriage versus life.
That's true. So that kind of brings me to the first thing that came to mind when I really started thinking about this topic an hour ago. no, I'm just kidding. 2 hours ago was it was almost like, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Boy, we got to be careful on this episode, don't we? I'm not saying this is a bad thing, honey, but it felt like, looking back, it was almost a thrust into, and boy, isn't that the term? A thrust into adulthood. Because you go from, especially at our age, we were, mid 20s, not even early 20s. We go from early 20s, idiot, right? Single idiot, doing whatever we want to do. And then now we're married. And then you and I had a similar situation where when we became married, we're now living with this person.
Mm-hmm.
So that all happened in one. A lot of couples will live together before. So we kind of had both of those things. I feel like you could do a before and after on living with somebody too.
Living alone.
So we had marriage and living with somebody all in one package. And it was, I don't want to say like a shock to the system, because everybody's lived with somebody for the most part. So it wasn't this crazy adjustment, but it was, all of a sudden this other person is living with me, and it's not just another person, it's my wife. So now everything I do has a potential, no, not potential. Everything I do has a consequence, good or bad. Yep. And now all of a sudden you're thinking about every little thing you're doing throughout the day, throughout your work day, through the decisions that you make aren't just for you anymore. They're for another person. And that's a big difference between being a 22-year-old guy living alone to that. Like, it literally happens overnight in our case. And I think that, I don't know, that was the biggest thing for me. Do you agree with that?
I feel like I'm not the typical case here. And so I'm struggling to advise too much for myself.
Oh God, don't advise.
My wife and I,
if you're listening to this podcast for advice,
my wife and I dated for 5 years, and we were engaged for 1 year before getting married. So we've known each other since high school. We've known each other a long time. We actually combined our bank accounts before we were married. Probably a million things you should or shouldn't do. I don't know. Ask a professional. But we crossed a lot of those bridges. We did premarital counseling beforehand. We knew each other, for better or for worse, well before the actual wedding date. And we knew each other's finances. We knew each other's backgrounds. We knew, I mean, by the time the wedding date had already come around, we had already bought a house together, combined our finances, gone through premarital. We both went to college together for a short period. Like, we had experienced a good amount of life together. And so by the time we moved in with each other, we had a lot of that, initial drama sort of ironed out. Yes, moving in
there
together
was
a stage where it's like, okay, you're like, maybe you don't go to the bathroom with the door open, or you clean up after yourself to avoid somebody else.
Because you do those things now, right? Now there's a threshold. All those
for the first
things,
few years
like,
of marriage, you close the door, and then after a few years, it's like, why bother closing the door? Like, just go.
I didn't hear my wife fart for the first 3 years, and now
women fart? I didn't
crop
know
dust
that
in the whole house. Yeah,
yeah.
There's another episode where it's before and after, like a 5-year mark, and boy, things change there too.
So
for sure,
I don't know that I experienced a drastic overnight change. Because we had ironed out a lot of those details and relationship, things before we even crossed that bridge. Like, the marriage thing was more or less a checkbox for us. It wasn't a stage.
Yeah. You didn't get married and your wife was like, oh, by the way, I have $90,000 in debt. Check this. Now it's our debt. Isn't that fun? Yeah, you didn't. That's good. That didn't happen to me either, by the way. Happened to somebody I knew.
Forgot to mention.
So yeah, that was I think the kind of the one that was at the forefront of my mind. The other one, on a bit of a lighter note, but very much real, is the amount of people, and I think this can change depending on your significant other, but the amount of people I continue to have to meet all the time. We're doing double dates, and we're doing dinner parties, and we're meeting, we just moved to a new place, and now we got to get to know people, and she's the kind of person who talks to other people and is friendly and like sets dates with people we met at church or out, and now we got to do this, and it's such a good thing for me, because I'm realizing if I didn't get married, I wouldn't ever meet another person in my entire life. If it were up to me, I would just, as my friends died off, that would just be alone. I would be completely alone. So in the moment, it stresses me out, but I'm like, it's probably a good thing that I have to continue to do this.
It certainly, the marriage thing certainly changes the dynamic of your social life.
I like how we call it the marriage thing too. Let's just keep referring
the marriage
to
thing,
the little that marriage thing. Yes.
The social circles you keep, it's, and we've talked about this a little bit with dad related topics and kids, and being invited out with kids to dinner late at night on a weeknight. But the secondhand result of some of this is that, yes, over time you're going to start to hang out a little bit more with people who are going through a similar scenario as you. So you're probably not going to go out partying at 10 o'clock at night with your single friends on a Thursday. And you'll probably go to a more family friendly restaurant with another couple who maybe has kids or maybe just got married, depending on which stage of that marriage process you're in. You're going to start to, find social circles that meet your status. And I think there's some times where I get frustrated with plans and whatnot, but I don't know, living in South Florida, there's a lot of good restaurants to go to. And so as long as we're going somewhere, I'm usually cool with it because there's an out. I don't like going to people's houses and stuff. I don't want to go sit on your couch and talk about I don't want to do a you cook dinner and invite us over thing or whatnot. Children's barbecue, like children's birthday parties. It's frustrating, but
do you like people at your house? I don't.
No, not at all.
I don't like,
not at all.
Like people that I know, maybe people that I don't know, that feels psychotic.
Get an hour or two of social connection and then go home. I don't.
Yeah, And I feel alone in that endeavor. My other half loves people over. We love to go to other people's house. I can't remember the comedian, but he does a bit about going to somebody else's house, and first thing he does is he knocks on the door. They tell him to take his shoes off, and he's like, "Here we freaking go!" Like these people now we're standing around as adults talking to each other with no shoes on. It's just, when you go into somebody else's house, like I don't like the way it smells, and it's not that it smells bad. It just doesn't smell like my house, and I don't want that. It's just, it's an interesting pattern that we now follow, and we do have to follow it because I started a thing with my kids, and I'm applying this to my marriage, and it's worked out. So tonight, none of them wanted to take baths, and they're having a real problem listening because they're kids.
Yep.
And I told them, I said, you can either get a bath right now and we have no problems, or you can get a consequence and have a bath right now. The choice is yours. Either way, you're getting a bath right now. So you pick, you do it. And I had to do it with both my older ones. And they're, take a bath now. And I've come to discover with the marriage, this marriage thing, as we refer to it, it's very similar. When my wife suggests, and if you're listening, I am air quoting this, suggests a plan for a weekend, I now understand it as that is in fact what we are doing.
It's
this
already
weekend.
Done.
I can these plans are in concrete. This is what we are doing. I can either agree to said plans and smile and make the best of it, and we'll go and we'll of course have fun, Or B, I can complain and moan and we can have a little fight about it. And then we also still go do the thing that I don't really want to do.
Isn't it frustrating how they make these plans and you put up a fight that you don't want to do it, and then you go do it and you actually have a good time?
Right.
Isn't that frustrating?
Yes.
It's like, why does it have
because
to?
Because they know you're having a good plan.
Why do they have to be right?
I have a theory, and I don't even know if it's a theory, that women are just the smarter being. They just know more things. They feel more things. They're genuinely smarter, and they just know more things. And yeah, they're right. And then you go have a good time, because people like us, you and I, can't help but entertain and just be fantastic in front of people. So naturally, they fall in love with us. Everybody's having a good time. We're just alive for the party. That's how it is. And then we have a good time. And then the next time these plans come up, she says, yeah, but you had fun last time. And then now she's pinned you down and she's logic trapped you.
Yep.
And that's it. And now you're going
the rest of your life
again. And then it just,
that's your whole life.
And you do that until you die. And then you die. And then that's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. So yeah, that was, as my voice cracks, that was certainly one. But the final thing, I kind of touched on it a little bit, with the living with somebody and understanding like the day-to-day things, like every decision has a consequence on a smaller level, but on the large level, what job am I taking?
Yep.
I'll never forget this. This was such a weird thing. When we became engaged, and this is stupid, but one of those moments just ingrained in my head for some reason. I remember we were engaged and I was out that night with a couple of my buddies on the town, and we were crossing a street. And typically what we do is we just look both ways and check, and then we just run across, no matter what the crosswalk says, we just run across it. Right. And I was like, oh, I got to be careful. I was like, I am now engaged. Like, I am important to somebody. Like, I felt the weight of, and that's a dumb example, but I vividly remember feeling the weight of like, okay, everything I do now,
there's somebody else that's affected by it. Big time, especially with things like doing dangerous things, is like, it's not really something I do anymore. I don't play. I used to play pickup basketball all the time, and I don't do it anymore because I realize if I sustain a serious injury playing pickup basketball, that could affect my work, and that affects my work. That affects her. That affects the family. And it's such a weird mindset, because you should certainly think about all these things. You don't want to just think about yourself anymore. But it's weird. I think you should be able to do some things, but I think ultimately it makes you make smarter choices. I think the reason you're not playing pickup basketball is because you're now in your 30s and you're old and you're out of shape, and you would get hurt.
Yes. All those things.
If you were athletic and in shape and any good at all, then you'd probably still be playing, because you wouldn't be afraid of getting hurt. So I think it makes us make wiser choices.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that it's controlling your choices. It's helping you make it's helping you slow down and make a conscientious, deliberate choice about what you're going to do, which I think is ultimately kind of a good thing, because I think we have a tendency to act first and think later, and slowing down a little bit and thinking first is a good thing for everybody. So
absolutely. Yep. It's definitely a bump up in the responsibility. And of course that gets doubled down when you have kids, but it's one of those things that, you know, when you get married, and we did the premarital counseling too, it's one of those things that I don't really feel like anybody prepped me for it. Not that it's a heavy thing or a tough thing, but it's not something that a lot of people talk about when they talk about marriage. They talk about, you have to think about the other person's feelings and, you know, the financial side of it, and all those are true, but like just the literally every decision you have to take into account the other person.
Yeah.
I mean, people kind of gloss over the when you're married, you become one, but that's very much a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not a thing for you, you could have
should go get some
problems
counseling
down the road. You're right. You should be feeling this way, as one. And it was, I don't know if that's ever something that becomes fully. I think we're selfish, like inherently, we're just selfish people. Everybody individually, you first think about yourself. So I don't, you get more used to it, but it's constantly something. Oh, I want to do this. Well, wait a second. How does this? What would she think about this? Is this a good idea altogether? Like, it's just, and then like you said, at the end of the day, wiser decisions are certainly being made than what they would have been before. Definitely. Basketball or anything aside. Hey, should I go out with my friends tonight? Probably not. Probably it feels like they might get a little wild tonight. I don't think so. I don't think I'm just going to be suffering a hangover if I do this. I think there's going to be more
on those social circles. You're not going to go hang out with your single friends. You're going to go hang out with couples. And couples are more than likely not going to go do wild, stupid, crazy stuff, because couples has kind of the implication that there are women there, and women don't really want to do those crazy things anyway. So you're all going to do exactly what they want to do anyways. So you're probably going to go out to a restaurant, go window shopping for stuff you can't afford, and I don't know, go watch a show, a concert, a comedy thing. Like, it's really just what they want to do, and we kind of all tag along.
This all just folds into everything we're saying.
It's frustrating that it's a good time.
It's really good. It is, because we just want to. We talked about this on the kids episode, where if it were up to me, if we were up to our own devices, we would probably sit on the couch, eat potato chips, watch football all day on a Saturday. But with kids, you can't do it, and you can't get away with that. When you're married, you may be able to if you're lucky for 1 or 2 weekends, but the kids and our wives get us up, and they get us moving, and they get us talking to people that we, otherwise would have no idea existed or cared existed. Yep. So yeah, it's all good things, but certainly some difficult adjustments from time to time. And I was trying to think of a negative on this one, and I was too scared to think about it anymore. Right. No, I couldn't, nothing really came to mind. Like, the only things that came to mind were, I can't do what I want, everything I want anymore. But that's not a good, it's a good thing I can't. There's no
for
real,
the better. We're all thankful for that.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think we kiss some serious ass this episode. This was good. We definitely need to share this with our wives and make sure that they heard this episode for sure. If you were tuning in and you thought, oh, here we go, we're going to get some tough no, absolutely not. We're not idiots. We are not idiots. So yeah, if you think we left something out, or if you've had, obviously we all have different experiences, but you said at the beginning of the episode, Andrew, we both got married pretty young. So I'd be interested to see what the other experiences are getting married.
I'd love to hear what the biggest changes were for people who were married in their 30s and 40s. What do they think the biggest the biggest shock was? Pre versus post marriage. If you got married, or if you met your significant other in your 30s, what was the biggest shock?
Right. It helps when we are, not helps, that's the wrong word, but I do feel like it's a little bit easier generally for people our age, because we're literally growing up together. We're becoming adults together. But yeah, you're already an established adult, and then you're getting married to another already established adult.
You have a house, and she has a house, and you both own, and you both have savings accounts, and you both have student debt, and you both have, and then you slam all of that together at 100 miles an hour. Yeah, maybe you both have kids, and you're trying to merge that together.
Yeah,
like, that's nuts.
Yeah. That's a different, yeah. We can't do that episode. I almost said unfortunately. That's not the word I meant to say. Get everybody in trouble, right? Listeners, why is everybody pissed off? But no, we can't do that because we're not going to talk about things we haven't experienced because we don't want to just straight lie to you and say we know about those things. We could just make it up. We could, but we won't. But if you have had that experience, interested to hear what those other things might be. So anyway, this has been another episode of the Common Dad Podcast. Of course, before you stop listening, don't forget to go to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Leave a follow, leave a like, leave a subscription, leave us something, leave a comment. You can shoot us a DM. It doesn't matter. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next time.